waste time taking classes like core requirements at UT, highly recommend taking them at a community college or just at a local college over the summer or over breaks. It helps free up space in your schedule, and your future, your junior and senior self will thank you a lot.
We'll probably get started in just about a minute. Just letting you all know.
Nursey, do you have a funny Zoom story since you're always trying to get them from us?
I don't. I think the funniest thing that happened today, or just in general, I think, is when I did something in the kitchen, came back, and like I just joined the class. So you know how they always ask like, "Oh, please join with computer audio," and I clicked it, thinking that I was on mute, and my roommate had just walked in saying, "Nirthi, I really want to take a nap," and my professor heard it, and he was like, "Sorry, did you say something?" And then I proceeded to basically die in shame. That's my story of the semester.
I mean, at least it's your roommate. It wasn't you.
But I don't think they could tell. So it's fine. But it's fine.
All right. I think we'll get started now. Welcome everyone to our 11th general meeting of the semester. Semester is kind of flown by. It's kind of interesting. We're already on the 11th. Everyone, please sign in at the QR code or the link at the bottom of the screen. Yeah.
You'll need an app for me to help you with that.
Okay.
You could try searching the App Store.
Something is wrong. Can you all still see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, Siri started talking at me from nowhere. Anyways, in this meeting, we'll start with the TIFs giveaway as usual. So where is Max? Max, do you have our TIFs winner for this week?
I don't think Max is here.
Yeah, Max isn't here, but I can do it.
All right. Let's
will
go, Alejandro.
So the winner of our tips giveaway is Nicholas Richards. Have you won before?
Hey, no, I haven't.
Awesome, then you win. So we'll get in touch with you and give you all the details for that.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Congrats. All right. Last week, we had a really fun GM with Samsung, and they gave out prizes and Grubhub coupons to everyone who attended. I hope you all enjoyed that event. That was a lot of fun to put together. And now we'll go through some of our upcoming events. We have our ECE study halls every Tuesday from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. This is a great way to meet people in your classes and get to work with others and get some help. It's a lot of fun. I encourage you all to come. Next, we have Engineering Eats. The first week is starting. I'll hand it over to Pranesh to talk about it.
I can take over for Pranesh on this one.
All right, let's go, Brian.
So this is like a fun stress relieving event. And it's basically we're collaborating with other organizations such as ASCII, SWE, and we're having like a food making competition, like a cooking competition. So the first 3 people to text Pranesh, like maybe on Slack, get to compete in the competition this upcoming week. And the theme will be released really soon. And what's going to happen is you're going to make your food, and after you make your food, send a picture of the food and the name of the food to Pranesh, and by Sunday midnight, and then you will be on the Instagram polling, and you will get voted to see if you win or not. And for your grocery shopping, you will get reimbursed. So that means if you spend less than $20, you'll be getting paid for that. And also at the end, when the results are released, you can win a free meal delivery of your choice.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I hope everybody participates in that. Should be a lot of fun. All right. And next, I'll hand it over to Maldika or Katie, whoever's here, to talk
Yep.
about the mental health activities.
Hey guys, we hope that maybe y'all have been taking a look at the weekly mental health activities. So last week we wanted y'all to take a look at the sunrise or sunset. So thanks to y'all that sent in those submissions. This week we want y'all to try to go outside at least once every day for the week. And obviously these mental health activities are really great for taking care of yourself, but you might be wondering, how do these activities specifically work? How do they actually impact our mental health and our mood? So for this specific activity, which is going outside in the nature, studies have shown that calming nature sounds and even outdoor silence can lower your blood pressure and levels of the stress hormone, which calms the body's fight or flight response. And even just being outside and experiencing the pleasant greenery and trees, this provides a distraction for your mind from negative thoughts. So that's specifically a little bit of how this activity actually works. So hopefully that encourages y'all to actually go outside, spend some time out there, because we know that school can get really stressful, and I think that these activities will really help you guys. So do participate.
Awesome. Thanks, Malvika. I hope everyone participates in that, and make sure you take care of yourself, everyone. That is important. All right, and sign up for office hours to get tips for registration. I know registration just happened for everyone, but there's still a lot more opportunities to register before next semester. So if you want tips, let us know. If you want advice on tech cores, career paths, well, that's why you're here at IEEE. Awesome. Next week, we have our professor panel. This is always a really exciting event, so make sure y'all send in your questions beforehand. We have a really strong list of professors lined up for next week. Should be a lot of fun. Hope to see y'all there.
Also, a quick update. We managed to get Dr. De Viciana also to come as well. So
that's awesome. I had Dr. De Viciana for probability. He's really good. All right, now I'll briefly talk through the study abroad program, which is through the International Engineering Education Office. Yeah, so, okay, I assume this is really large on your screen as well. But study abroads can be short-term or longer during the summer. I think they're specifically looking at the short-term faculty-led programs here. They're 4-week-long Maymesters, and they're UT courses taught by UT professors. So that's pretty exciting. And you can definitely get a lot of useful credits for both your engineering degree and your general education requirements through these really fun programs. So the Maymester courses, there's a really interesting advanced nanotechnology course for those interested in that. And there's also innovation for beginners, which should be pretty interesting. Engineering communications is required for all of us in engineering. So this is a fun way to take it. Yeah, and they have a lot of other options as well. So definitely check the link they have in the slides that we've sent out on Slack so you can see all the options they provide. And they have a really interesting location change going to Denmark. That should be a lot of fun. Yeah. Okay, Copenhagen. I don't know how to pronounce that correctly. Yeah, seems like a really, really exciting place. And it looks like you don't have to learn a new language. A lot of them speak English. That's exciting. Okay, funding. This is pretty key. So the great thing is that they're making this program accessible to everyone. There are multiple scholarships available. In addition to the $400 scholarships I've mentioned, they have a limited number of $1,000 engineering Maymester scholarships. I'm sure this really helps offset the cost of these opportunities. So please reach out to them if you're interested in the Maymester programs. I'm sure the university doesn't want cost to get in the way of, joining these great opportunities. Applications. Apply via My Abroad. They have a link in the slides as well. They're just 2 short essays, it seems. Yeah, you can see the list of stuff they need here. Deadline is February 1st. That's important. It's multiple months away, but it is rolling admission, so you want to apply as soon as you can. And cool. If you have any more questions, contact the International Engineering Education Office at these links and definitely attend their info sessions. Great. And now we will hand it over to Mr. James Mercier from the IEEE to discuss keeping up with engineering trends in the professional world. So James Mercier has an eclectic and greatly varied work history. His focus changed as to what trends were important depending on what job or position he was in. James will draw on his 34 years in the professional world of engineering to explain and give examples of how and how not to keep up with trends. So now I'll hand it over to Mr. Mercier.
Thank you, Rizvik. Probably a bunch of you are thinking, 34 years? He looks a lot older than that. Well, I am. I was 38 when I graduated from engineering college. Excuse me. Questions about trends. And first thing I would ask y'all is exactly what trends are y'all looking for? What trends are y'all considering? What would you say? Rizvik, you told me your idea earlier. I'll ask the others, let them unmute and give me some words. Don't everybody speak all at once.
I think one obvious trend is artificial intelligence and machine learning, which I'm sure everyone hears about all the time. So that's definitely one of them.
That's one. Micro miniaturization of electronics, processor speeds, a lot of stuff that I really can't address because it's completely out of my field. Within power, there's the trends to using artificial intelligence and computer programming to sense faults and predict problems. The question is, which one should you follow? Well, I talked to a few of you beforehand, and you all have different fields, different approaches that you're looking for out of electrical engineering. So the question is, where do you keep up with what's going on? What's changing in your field? There's two things to consider. And first, you're thinking, well, what should I keep up with? What should I be paying attention to? That depends on where you're working and for whom you're working. You'll get your clues there. You can look at things and trends that you find interesting while you're in school, but be honest, they're no more than interesting, because when you graduate, you are going to find that this serious subject in college, well, it's actually over here. This is the serious subject. Not dramatically, but just a shift of what you think is important versus what they think is important. But when you're working, how do you find you're stuck in your little company, and the companies have these big webinars where they explain to people what's going on, they bring in new technology, right? No. It's going to be worse than being confined to your rooms during coronavirus. You're stuck in your cube, you're working on what they have you working on, and you don't know a lot of what's going on except by accident. Okay, how do you overcome that? Number one, most importantly, do not give up your IEEE membership just because you graduated from college. This is the function of professional societies, to keep us in touch with what's going on. I still go to the American Society of Civil Engineers meetings. I'm a past chair of the Pi Square chapter here at IEEE. I'm active in the section. And by the way, if that gives you also a clue, your engineering job is not strictured by what your degree is. I know aeronautical engineers who were working at Texas Department of Transportation and Plan Development. I know civil engineers working in the electrical field. I know electrical engineers working in the transportation field. So you'll be surprised how you're going to shift. It depends on where the job is and what you're interested in. But we have a problem with lots of people, most of the students graduate and they drop their IEEE membership because, well, that was a college fraternity, so to speak. I'm in the real world now. Actually, the real world, you need it even more than you do in college. Now at Pi Square, at our chapter, which for those of you who weren't on earlier, I'll lean up so you can see the logos. At the top is Power Electronics Society, Industry Electronics, Power and Energy Society, and Industry Applications. And that's where we get, from the initial of each one of those, we get Pi Square. We have presentations, we try to balance it between the four societies so that we get different things. I have been to presentations that right over the head, got no clue. And I said something to somebody else and he said, I hope you were lost. I'm an electrical engineer and I couldn't follow him. On the other hand, there are things in the industry applications or the Power and Energy Society that's, my hearing aid just died. Well, and that's my last battery for a while. Oh, well, things happen. That these have been very meaningful to me. But other people were looking lost, but no, this is what I need to know. This is what I would like to know. So use your IEEE, keep your membership up, attend the meetings. You meet a cross section of people. You see, even in just the casual conversations before the meeting, not just the presentation there. Hi, how you doing, Mohit? What are you working on now? Oh, really? That's interesting. So you find things are going on. Occasionally in a job, you will run into a problem. Not one that you can necessarily take to your boss because he hasn't seen it either. Even if you have, he says, well, gee, I don't know. What can we do about this? Mention it at an IEEE meeting. In my case, I was working for the Texas Department of Transportation, and I was tasked to design a collapse detection and motorist warning system for a bridge, because the bridge had been knocked out by a barge, but the bridge had the highest span over the ship channel and people couldn't see it. When they came down the other side, at the point that they could see the span was missing, it was too late and the cars went off the edge. So we needed a way to warn people, the bridge is broken, stop. I knew what I wanted to do, but I did not know the specifics. They were out of my field. I asked questions. I talked to people. One fellow said his father was a cable installer. I had looked all over for some way to ring the cable and then split it. No such tool. It doesn't exist. I went to the people that ought to know. So his father came and he said, well, what are you doing? I said, wait a minute, how'd you just do that? Oh, this little German tool. So everybody in Austin had told me no such thing exists. Yes, he has several of them. I bought two, but well, brand new. But the thing is, this is where you get the information. I went on other problems, talking to people, found out about something brand new coming out from Allen Bradley. Even the prototype wasn't out. All we had was paperwork on it, but that's what I needed for my system. So professional societies, no matter what it is, will help you. Next question is, where are you working? Again, what if you get a job in the traffic management section of the Texas Department of Transportation? And by the way, that's most of the electrical engineers, or at least the computer engineers, because those systems are very computer driven. And ordinary civils normally don't hack that. They have electrical engineers there. So you don't need, since you're not a civil, you don't need any of the civil stuff, right? Actually, if you're smart, you will keep up with the transportation side because you're working in the transportation field. You may not have to run a program on traffic management, but you need to know what the civils who are running that program need and what they're trying to do. You do not need to be an expert on traffic engineering, but just enough of an understanding to know what they're talking about. By the way, I was in hydraulics for a while, open channel hydraulics. We dealt with all the water that was over the road, under the bridge, through the culvert, or down the ditch. And I was sent with an environmental specialist out to the Bryan district. The state is, TxDOT is geographically divided into 25 districts. We went over there, looked at a problem, and we saw where there was a creek, there was erosion, and mostly a bare side. And she said, we need to stabilize the hillside. And I said, yes, probably sheet piling. She said, well, plant grass. I said, no, we got to do the sheet piling. And I kept saying, we have to stabilize it. And finally she caught something and said, wait a minute, when you say stabilize, what do you mean? I said, well, put some sort of shoring to keep the soil from washing away so we can plant the grass. And once it takes hold, she started laughing. She said, no wonder we're fighting. In the environmental field, when you plant grass, that is stabilizing. You're talking about physically holding it backward. The lesson there is get your terms straight. And if you pay attention to what the transportation engineers are doing, you can communicate easier with them. Another experience of get your terms, your definitions correct, is down here on Lady Bird Lake on the south side. A few years ago, the walkway was built where it's actually over the water. And it goes up and it turns and it jogs and goes. And you have big, massive 1 meter diameter piers. And they're near the shallow water, so there's not much flow at all, nothing flowing. And the architect and the chief engineer and the chief architect were looking at the plan, and as he went along this zigzag, he said, the trail turns, he said, we have a moment here. And the engineer said, no, we don't. Oh, we have to have a moment here. And the engineer said, no, there's not enough water pressure. It doesn't make any difference. We have to have a moment. But what the engineer was talking about was when you have a pier and you have the force against it, it creates a moment. What the architect was talking about is when you walk out on this landing, stop and go, aha, that's a moment. So again, professional society meetings will help you understand who you're working for or with, what they're doing. Usually you can simply attend the meetings. You don't have to be members. Now, within a professional society, what can you do? This spectrum is good overall. However, what Brian will be interested in is probably these two: Power and Energy from the Power and Energy Society and Industry Applications. And these are the two societies that I belong to, of four, but these are the two that I'm most interested in because they apply to my field. I am also a licensed master electrician. So if you're wondering, how did a civil get involved with electricity? Well, I was an electrician before I went back to school. And I went into civil because it tied more closely with construction. And I love construction. So I'll let you sit there and figure out the transformer and all this. I'll get it placed for you and get it placed safely and properly. So this is, again, this is one of those variations in the field. Which trends do we keep up with? Let me tell you about my work experience. When I graduated, there was, from college, there was not much work. We were during I think they only called it a recession, but for the building trades, it was a depression. It lasted 5 years. And I graduated right at the end of it, and the jobs had not yet come back. But I managed to get a job in the environmental field, environmental cleanup. Sounds beautiful, doesn't it? Doing something good for the environment. Trust me, the environmental field is not where you want to be. All that is a lot of bureaucracy. I later had a chance to get out of it, but at the time I was in it, I was not interested in, or I still have a connection to electrical, but I was not interested in many other aspects of civil engineering because I was trying to be proactive and study in this field. Then in 1994, I had to move back to Texas to take care of my father in his last days. Actually, it was 93. And while I was trying to find an engineering job, I was working as an electrician, but the only job I could get, there's no environmental firms or very few here in town. What I got was accidentally was a job at the Texas Department of Transportation in roadway illumination. Well, they needed an electrical type. Guess what? I fit right in. Suddenly, I remember some of the environmental, but I don't need to keep up with that. Now, here's another thing to worry about trends and a thing to pay attention to. When I got into the environmental field, I was told, you are so lucky. This field is booming. It is only going to go up. Yeah, up until it burst and then fell. The government funding for certain programs ended, and the great booming environmental field fell like a lead balloon. And it died. It's still there. I had a chance to talk to a kid who's going to the University of Cincinnati. His mother asked me to talk to him. He is studying was studying environmental engineering. So I got him to call me and I asked him, why are you interested in the environmental field? Well, I want to do something good for the world and this and that. And I explained, no, you'll either be out on the site digging up contaminated dirt or watching laborers do it, or you're going to be sitting in an office writing a permit application that we want to install a gas station here. Yes, we're going to protect the tanks. I said, if you want to work effectively for the environment, get a job in another engineering field and just do things cleanly. Guess what? He changed. So know where your field is. The environmental field has been mostly a bust. Other than cleanup contractors, the engineering part of it is nothing but a bureaucratic nightmare. I was so glad to get with the Department of Transportation and get a real engineering job. The trend said that the environmental was going to last forever. It didn't. Cleaning up the underground storage tanks at the gas stations, because a lot of them were leaking. Well, that only lasted as long as the government funding did. As soon as the federal government pulled out, the states went, oh, we're not interested anymore. And everyone was laid off. So pay attention to your trends. Computers there was a time when people said, in fact, not even computers, just electronics. When I was in the Air Force, son, I was working on radar. You're working in electronics. You're guaranteed a good job. When you get out of the service, they're going to want you. No, they didn't. Because I didn't have an FCC first class license with radar attachment, which was those days. So I couldn't do anything for an airline or anyone else. The training I got was mediocre. I also figured out later, I hate electronics. I love electrical power, but I hate electronics. So I just left it alone. To this day, you need to get power to your house or to your computer, I will get it there for you. You want to know what's wrong with your computer? Not my job, man, not my job. Do I keep up with the computer trends? No, I have to be told by others. Do I keep up with the electrical trends? Yes. I had a boss at TxDOT who did not keep up with the trends. Namely, that the National Electrical Code, hang on here, comes out once every 3 years, changes and updates. I have a whole library shelf of old code books. Okay, what did it say back then? Was that built to the code back when it was built? And I had a boss who was writing a letter, who fancied himself quite an electrical engineer, writing a letter to a contractor saying, well, you had this violation in your installation. And he quoted something like Article 300.11. And at that point, I had just come out of the environmental field, so I did not have a code book with me or the current code, because nowadays they're expensive. But even then they were expensive and I was broke. But they, something about that citation looked funny. And I asked him, are you sure this is the right section? Oh, yeah. And he pulled out his code book. It was almost 10 years old. And I said they change it every 3 years. And I told him, you better look that up. He goes, nah, they don't change that much. Oh, yes, they do. They had rechanged their numbering system. That was not 311. In the current code, there was no 311, 310 to 312, or 0.10, 300.11, 300.12. And I think it had even changed more than that. It was now something like 300.50 because things had moved and the code had been expanded. He did not keep up with the trends. He just decided, I've got my degree, I've got my code book, I'm golden. Had he kept up, he would have had us. After that, it kind of shamed him. Somehow I managed to look it up and I found out what the current code said, told him. Well, we wound up getting code books for everybody in the office. I got the state to spring for them. This is what happens when you don't keep up. But he didn't go to any technical meetings, didn't go to any society meetings. He just sat back and knew he had what he needed, and that was it. That's the downside. So, as I said, first figure out your field. What applies? From roadway illumination, I worked for a couple of years in traffic signals. Suddenly, I was very interested in what were the specifications around traffic signals and how were they changing. I still have some interest in that today. I don't keep up with the roadway illumination as tightly as I used to. I went into open channel hydraulics because there was a great job opening there. Again, now suddenly I had to dredge back from almost 20 years earlier. What was in hydraulics? What had I forgotten? What were the new programs? How were they operating? Yes, they had a program called HEC 1, another program called HEC 2. These were now upgraded to HEC RAS, standing for River Analysis System, and HEC HMS, Hydrologic Modeling System. I got to know those very well. I got to know other things. I still kept up with my code books because now I had more money and I could afford to pay for the classes myself. I was already, we had set up our chapter here, IEEE chapter, and we had the once every 3-year code classes. We've done that now. So that we offer that to anyone who's interested in the National Electrical Code. What are the updates every 3 years? We have other classes on grounding. We are going to have a workshop in the spring on special systems where we pull out of chapter 600 and chapter 700. We're trying to get focused now on just what we want to teach about, because that's a 1-month workshop right there. Or if you were to attend in one sitting, it would be a 1-week workshop on those two alone. We can't afford that. We're going to have to 8 hours probably spread over 4 days. But again, professional societies are the answer. The other is pay attention to what's happening around you. Had I been paying attention in the environmental field, I would have bailed out even sooner. But I was too busy. I'm just doing work. I don't have time for that. That was my mistake. That's where I got blindsided. And then there's the change in technology, that what you were working on that was so significant has just been replaced by something that isn't, or is now insignificant, making what you were, what was significant now isn't, because now this is the new significant, this one is not. Are there any questions? Or
Yeah, I was curious about you just mentioned leaving the environmental field. What were those indicators that maybe like foreshadowed, okay, the environmental field's not something I should stay in?
I think that number one, the funding was based from the federal government, sort of like working for NASA. NASA will never go away. It almost did. I think the constantly changing rules and regulations around it, nothing was stable, nothing was steady. So again, trying to keep up with the trends in the field was difficult. That was kind of a warning sign. If this is so wonderful and solid, why does it keep changing like a shifting river? So that, the other thing is, what new technology is coming out? For example, show you something from anybody recognize this? No clues?
No, I'm not familiar. Anyone else?
Well, a hint is these are two big magnets in my hand. And that's a waveguide coming out the front, looking at you. This is a cavity magnetron. It's used to create a radar pulse. So you have a tube on the top, the high voltage goes in the tube, it arcs down in the Y direction. The magnetic field is in the strong magnetic field is in the X direction, which means your radar pulse comes out at the Y direction. I worked on the F-4C and F-4D fighter jets. You'll see one of those on display out at Camp Hubbard. And then I heard that the F-4E was coming out, advanced model, advanced radar. It was all 100% solid state. There were no tubes at all. I said, none? Absolutely none. Yeah, you show me how you're going to make a solid state magnetron. That's impossible. Okay, I was wrong. They did. So do not get trapped into, son, don't worry about it. This field will never go away. It's too important. That's a warning sign right there. Even if it doesn't go away, it is going to significantly change. Be flexible, be willing to move. Just because you land in a field and while you're in college, that you wind up in a major or a concentration, doesn't mean you're stuck there. You would not believe the number of electrical engineers that have become very successful stockbrokers because they understand numbers and trends. It's got nothing to do with electrical engineering. They're up there on the trading floor. They are getting wealthy. I am smart enough to know I can't do that. I'll just stay back. Know what your limitations are. People were telling me, well, James, you got it great. you're a licensed master electrician and now you're a professional engineer. When are you going to open your own business? I am very proud to tell you that I am smart enough to know I am not a businessman. There's no way in hell. I do not feel like going bankrupt. I will work for someone else. We all want to be on our own. Some people can do it. A lot of us can't. Be smart enough to know not just if you are that person, when is the right time to do it. So these are the things that, there was another story about someone that, I can't recall it right now, wanted to open something up. And the catch is the field was changing. So he put his money into this and suddenly the field changed. And here he was stuck here with an investment that went nowhere. Sort of like Hewlett Packard advertising their desktop calculators with the big green numbers and the little rubber feet. And suddenly their advertisements disappeared from the radio because they finally realized, sorry, your desktop calculator, which was about, I'd say the alpha part of your keyboard wide and twice as deep, and just as big machine tick, 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 to process, got replaced by the calculators. Again, some of us never saw it coming because we weren't paying attention. Fortunately, I was not in that field, but there were those who made the investments and lost. They did not keep up with the times. Is your company keeping up, or are they pushing you extremely hard to keep going, but they haven't noticed the changes? That's what you want to pay attention to. How do you know about the changes? Again, this is where your professional societies, your annual conventions, the papers presented at these conventions. Yes, it costs money to attend those, but you find out what's going on. And you can figure out that, oh, yes, our company is behind. Maybe I need to just step over here to another company that's thinking the right way. Now, have I pretty well answered the questions, or just sort of well?
Oh, absolutely. I personally got a lot out of that answer. It seems like there are so many different things that we should be paying attention to. That the good thing is that we can access this information through these professional societies and just meeting people. That was great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have any questions? No charge for questions, but only for the next 10 minutes.
I had a quick question. So
Yes.
I know you asked us this at the very beginning. You asked about what trends we thought were currently out there in the industry. But I was wondering, for some of us that don't really know what's currently out there, for most engineering or tech companies, what would you say is like the most important trends that people should follow currently? No.
Read your Spectrum magazine.
Okay. All right.
It will introduce you to the trends.
Mm-hmm.
And
All right.
now there was a time when one of the concerning trends was that software engineers were being burned out. They were being hired for a 40-hour week pay, which is really good pay, but then they wound up being demanded to work not 60, but 80 hours a week. One guy built a little house out in the backyard so that he could be at home, but still out there continuing to do work. They were promised stock options. Well, instead of a pay raise, Pranesh, what we're going to do is give you stock options, which was fine until the company went bankrupt. No pension, no pay, just stock options. The other problem was that they would burn a guy and say, you know, if hard work is what gets you promoted in this company. So the guy would work, men, women alike, spend all their time. After 10 years, well, Pranesh, you graduated back in 2000, and it's now 2030 or 2020, and it's now 2030, and yours is old technology, so we're going to let you go. Now that's a BS call. What they did was they fired the experienced guy so they could hire a cheap brand new hire. Because as long as you're working in the field, you're paying attention to the trends and the changes, or at least you should be. And when I was in hydraulics, I had someone trying to tell me that this program is done this way. And I said, yes, up until 5 years ago, and it was changed. But I've always done, go back to sleep, would you please? So you will have that. But if you're paying attention, why are they working me so hard? And one of the considerations was in Spectrum magazine, the letters to the editor, there was serious talk about we need to form a union. And what, professional engineers organizing into a union? That's how serious the problem was and the discussion was. So again, don't be one of those that's too busy to read. No, pay attention. You'll get the warning signs that things are coming through your professional magazines and talking to other people at professional meetings.
Thank you for that.
Sure thing.
I actually
Go ahead, Ame.
I don't know. It's cool. You can go.
Alrighty, so I guess my question was, I think I've been hearing every once in a while that, people nowadays go through like several careers in their lifetime. Like what you study in college is not necessarily what you end up working in. So, and I think that's what you've been reiterating as well, kind of knowing when to jump ship. But I guess I had a question about how would you balance the risk of doing that? Because like, how would you know, like, okay, now is like, you're keeping up with the trends and all of that. But how do you balance the risk of doing something entirely new when what you've learned is something completely different?
Number one, when for some reason you're forced to move to another city or state and the job that you knew was not available, maybe it's a good time to change. Number two, someone calls you up or one of your friends said, John B, there's a job over here and it might be interesting to you. It's not what you were doing, but it's something you could do. Check it out. Check the company out. Sometimes just where you're working, I'm not having fun. This is not exciting. It's no longer interesting. At this point, to quote from the Bible, Ecclesiastes 12, verse 1, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them, that's time to start looking for a different job. So I've been there myself, looked at something, I thought, why am I going to work today? I really think I need to find something different. Yes, it didn't pay quite as much as where I was. It didn't pay so low that I hurt, but I was having a hell of a lot more fun and really enjoying it. So that is a big consideration that we tend to ignore, is how miserable are we at work? How miserable is your boss? I love my job, but my boss is just an absolute complete pain, worse than the worst professor I ever had. Start looking around. I'm doing the job, I'm doing okay, they say I'm doing great, but it's just not exciting. Maybe you need to start looking around.
All right, thank you.
Sure thing. Okay, Ame, I think you were next.
Yes, hi. Actually, so my question was, I guess, what are the key factors that people use to necessarily classify something as a trend? Because I feel like there's development in all areas of engineering. And so how do you really delineate what something is called a trend versus what is, I guess, an industry with a bunch of buzzwords.
How do you know it's a trend versus a one-off thing?
Yes, exactly. Like, what are those, I guess, key performance factors?
That's going to be an observation thing. You start seeing more. First, you get introduced about this new process. Oh, that sounds fascinating. Later, at another technical meeting, an article or something, well, about this new process, a little change, but okay. Now you see changes, improvements, but gee, notice how they're still talking about this new process when they're all saying, oh, it's wonderful. This is a game changer. Okay, that's all the same. So when they start criticizing, and yes, it's good, but it has this fault. It should be fixed this way. Now, what we're trying to do is get it to, that's when it's becoming serious. It could collapse, but it's not as likely. But when it first pops up and they're saying, oh, look, yes, this is one, that ain't a trend yet. That's just hype. That's the way I would take it.
Okay, that's perfect advice. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a quick
Go ahead.
question. So this, I
Jacob.
know you said you're not a businessman per se, but based on people within your network and your experience, do you have any advice for the students that are studying undergrad engineering and eventually they want to go into a more business-facing role?
Wait, say that again. They're undergrads and they want to do what?
They're undergrads in engineering and eventually they want to go into a business-facing role.
A couple of things. Number one, know your engineering, know your job. If a manager's position comes open, apply for it. You may or may not get selected, but apply for it. Once you're in your first management position, you may find out that yes, it's work, but I enjoy this, or you may think, this is so horrible. Why did I ever make this mistake? And yes, at TxDOT, I had a couple of supervisors that were only supervisors because there's higher pay there. And I thought, boy, that's greedy for money when you take a job that's making you miserable, but I need the pay. You don't, and no, she didn't need the pay. She just wanted more pay. Some people are very successful that they handle the management part like they handle a good engineering job. I have one buddy that was constantly offered, you know, Dean, you should apply for supervisor position. He'd say, okay, appreciate that. I'll think about that. Yeah, and he never applied. He didn't want to. All he wanted to do was design bridges, and he's damn good at his bridges. So he's not retired, lives up the street from me. But yes, he knew where his interest was and where it wasn't. So if you want to do the business side, check it out. It's not as glorious as it sounds. It is a hell of a lot of work. It's sort of like engineering, that some people find out they're not interested in engineering. They're interested in doing calculations, but engineering means making decisions and being responsible for those decisions. Oh, I just want to go by the standards. Good, you're a technician. You stay over there. The engineers will make decisions over here. And management is the same sort of thing. So that's the best I can give you. As for owning a business, I would say take some business classes, find out what the tax law is, find out what the payroll law. It really comes down to what are all the different laws surrounding a business. That I want to manufacture cavity magnetrons. I think there's a market for them. What patents are out there? What patents do I have to deal with? What can I advertise? Texas has a law that says you cannot be a manufacturer distributor. You have to go through a distributor. How much is that going to cut into your profit? Is that something you want to deal with? This is the legal side. It has nothing to do with engineering or manufacturing. So at least get in, aware of those. I think I can make a good contractor as far as getting the job done, but make sure the taxes get paid, the payroll taxes, make sure the employee's health insurance is up to date. No, now we're running into things that I don't know enough about to make a decent decision. I'll just work for somebody else and do what I enjoy. So that's the best I can tell you is on the business. Check out some business classes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure thing. Okay, I won't charge you for questions at this point either. So I will take any more questions, no charge.
I have a question.
Somebody mumbled in the background.
Yeah, it was me. I just have a quick question regarding.
Speak up a little bit, Saab, please. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question about so how did software engineers tend to basically change, I guess, their trend after they graduate? Like, do software engineers tend to change their I guess their jobs after they graduate?
I
If so,
don't.
what?
I think I see what you're saying. Do software engineers stay in the software field, or do they tend to migrate to other places?
Yeah, that's my question.
Some do migrate. Some simply get a software degree and get licensed as an engineer. Okay, that's great. Now let me continue to move. Hang on a second. Let's see. There, stop that. Okay, they find where they're working that's interesting right over there. Let me move into that. Because one thing we learn as engineers is how to think, how to attack problems, how to make decisions. That really is what your engineering college is based on. Now, all that technical learning you got, that's just background. What you're really learning is how to attack problems. So whether you're a software or a civil or a computer engineer or chemical engineer, you're still attacking problems. Now, did you study enough to know how to discuss that? And that's what I talked about earlier. So yes, you are perfectly able to move over. I'm trying to think who I knew that started as a software engineer, but no, that's not where he is now. It's one of the guys in IEEE, and I can't remember who it is now, but you'd be surprised at the amount of moving because, again, it's personal interest. The question is, why does a civil engineer have a whole rack full of national electrical codes? I'm interested in it, damn it, that's why. Sorry about that, but does that help you out, Jacob? Or no, Saab?
Yeah, that does help.
And you may find that while you're taking the software classes, I'd like to take that class over there. I'd like to take that class. I'd like to take that class. No, they're not directly software, but I'm interested. And I've got a hole in my schedule so I could then take it. Yes. Next question.
All right. If there are no other questions, this was really great, Mr. Mercier. It was awesome to have you here today. I think we all learned a lot. This is the type of advice that we need to hear as undergraduates as we're getting ready to go out into the industry. So thank you very much. And I'm sure all of us will stay connected with the IEEE as we move forward. Thank you everyone for coming today, and I hope to see you all at the professor panel next week. Have a good night, and thank you, Mr. Mercier. Yes.
If I can real quick, I just, something you said triggered me. That is, folks, look around at your field of interest, what you think might be your field of interest. Find out what, since you're here in Austin, what meetings are happening in the Central Texas section and attend those meetings, whether they're online or in person. You'd be surprised what you learn and how it can shape your field. Okay? So yeah, I'm plugging IEEE again. And it doesn't matter if you were a civil engineer, I tell you, go to ASCE, attend the meetings. If you're a chemical engineer, I'd go to CHE, but go to your professional societies and look around.
Absolutely.
And Sahib, that also can help your answer too. Yes, I'm studying this, but what I'm seeing, these presentations are fascinating. I think I'm interested in that. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the last minute, Rithvik. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Just as a reminder to everybody here, we are posting the links to all the free IEEE Central Texas section events. So you should all be going to those when you have the time as well. Awesome. Thanks y'all for coming.
Good night, kids. Good luck to all of you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.